Good afternoon, everybody. Gary Allen with you here on Main Street. It is 4 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. I hope everybody has been well since last week. It's been an interesting week for an awful lot of us. I have a great guest coming on, but I just wanted to remind you about next week at 4 p.m. I have Chris DePetta coming on. Chris, of course, is the owner of The Punchline in Atlanta, Georgia. I've known Chris for a number of years. He's also the manager of Billy Gardello, who you might remember from Mike and Molly, and now Bob Loves Abishola. I think if I got that wrong, please excuse me. By the way, for those of you that want to make some comments or ask some questions, go ahead to twitch.tv/drinks, jokes, and capital M storytelling. Hey, Bucket List, how are you? He's always with me, and I love it. And tell your friends and family members about it. We're trying to get there. I'm also trying to get you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, which if you are on Facebook with me at all, at the end of the show, I'll probably let you know a little bit about that. I'm just trying to get about another 40 people, just 100, so I can get a customized URL. I hope if you go on Facebook, you can find it, and please go in there, or if you connect up with us in some way or another. We've got some great weeks, great shows coming up in the upcoming weeks. I just managed to book Rodney Allen Rippey. We've got some others on there. Hey, Down to the Felt. Hey, how you doing? And let me just say this. I really appreciate you people taking the time to watch. I hope you tell your friends, your family members. We're on every Friday at 4 p.m. Don't forget about the other shows that are on weekdays, as well as my friend Mark Riccondano's show on Sunday. He's on from 6 to 7. So please tune in to touch.tv and get in with him. And he does a great job. They all do. Richie Byrne, everybody on this channel does a great job. So let me tell you a little bit about the guest that I have on today. His name is Richard Skipper. I first met Richard about 10 years ago in Las Vegas, where he was a performer, as I was. He is a producer. He is a writer. He's an MC. He also hosts his own show called Richard Skipper Celebrates. He's done over 1,000 interviews. He's one of my dear friends in the whole world. He's one of the kindest, gentlest gentlemen that you could possibly imagine. He knows the New York cabaret scene as well as anybody. He knows show business as well as anybody. It is my pleasure to welcome this gentleman on, Mr. Richard Skipper.
Hello, Gary. If you can say that in Pig Latin, then I know that you mean it.
No, I don't think I can do that. I can barely get through what I'm doing now anyway. But
well,
thank you.
Again, we've got to stop meeting like this.
Yes, I was on Richard's show yesterday, and it was a little bit earlier. It was a little bit later. It was on at 5 o'clock. But we talked about COVID yesterday. And by the way, if you want to find out about Richard, go to richardskipper.com. That's his website. Hey, Angry. I didn't get the rest of it, but thank you so much.
Angry Shih Tzu.
Angry Shih Tzu. Oh, what a name for a dog. You know what I mean?
Love it. Don't you love it?
This is my buddy Bobby Shih Tzu here. He's a wonderful fella. But go to richardskipper.com. He also, like I said, is a host of Richard Skipper Celebrates. We're going to get to that in just a little bit. Richard, we talked yesterday about the COVID-19. And, today I went and got my first shot of the Moderna thing. And the only thing I keep telling people is go do it. It doesn't hurt you. People are saying, well, if you get in there, you have these side effects. There might be slight side effects, like a little nausea or something, but I've had no side effects so far from it. And you're helping yourself stay alive.
And others as well.
Yes, many, 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 many others. And please do go out there and get your shot. It's important. And we talked about a whole host of different things that we on yesterday's show with Dr. Judy Bloom and the others that joined us about getting back out into society again once this pandemic is over with. And my contention is, I don't know whether the pandemic part will probably be over with, but I think COVID's going to be with us for a long time, like the flu.
Well, Reuters just put out an article saying that this is now endemic. It's a major part of the world that we're living in. I think that one of the big issues right now is that so many people are saying, I can't wait to get my life back to normal. I can't wait till fill in the blank. And the bottom line is, stop waiting. Get out there and do what you need to do to get ourselves better. You mentioned that some people are afraid of the side effects. Well, the side effects sure does beat the alternatives. To get through this, we need to do what we need to do. Listen to the scientist. I had a teacher in high school, Miss Gerald. She ended every class by saying, read, reread, and take notes. And I say the same thing to everybody. Read, listen, and take notes. Pay attention to what's going on and know what's going on. We unfortunately live in a very fractured world in terms of the way that people get their news these days. So make sure that you're as up on everything as you possibly can be.
In as much as this is how I earn my living, and you are on the internet too, there's a lot of misinformation about this. And it all started, as I said yesterday, and I'm not going to get political any more than I did yesterday, but it all started with the guy that was sitting in the White House with the, don't you wear your mask? I don't need to wear the mask. I sit behind the Resolute desk. You know, if he had done his job, we would probably not have 500,000 people dead. And we would have a lot more people that would be alive. But no, instead of doing his job to secure people's health and their livelihoods and everything else, he was more concerned about being reelected. Therefore, he screwed up the numbers left and right, like what's going on in New York with Governor Cuomo, which I'm not sure if he screwed up the numbers or what.
Well, I'm going to say something. I don't want to offend any of your guests. You are welcome to disagree with me. But trust me, I have lived in New York going on 41 years now. I also have done 2 long-running shows at Trump's Taj Mahal in Atlantic City. So I know of the man of which I speak. The only thing about Donald Trump is that Donald Trump lives, eats, and breathes for the spotlight. And the idea of being in the spotlight was a lot more important. You and I are both in a business that when you show up, if I go to an audition and I am not prepared, I don't get the job. If the curtain goes up on opening night and I don't know what I'm doing, I am fired. And here, for whatever reasons, I do not understand why, as a nation, why people got behind a man who did not do the work. And I know that there are some out there who say he did do the work. Show me. That's all I ask. Show me.
We have 500,000 dead. I remember his press secretary, I won't tell you a lie, Kayleigh McEnany, that it'll never hit our shores. He'll protect us from it. You can't protect somebody from a pandemic if you don't care about anybody but yourself. I mean, we're going to get off of this here in a second, but my bottom line is that he would throw his own kids under the bus to save his ass.
Oh, absolutely he would. And again, this is a person who, if I could take one word to describe who I am, and I think you know me well enough that you may agree with me, at least I hope you will, and that is that I'm an empath. I am empathetic to the needs of other people. And if you are missing that in terms of who you are, you're missing, I would say, 85 to 90% of your core being. And the fact that this man did not care enough to want to try to do something about it. And I think that he also had this fear of being caught, of being found out. And I also am the type of person, I work very hard at what I do. I know that you do too. I surround myself with people who can do those things that I'm not able to do.
Yeah. And
no one is an island unto themselves, and everyone has to go out and work. Collaboration is very important in this business. And he wanted to be top man on the totem pole, and he wanted to be there on this pedestal with everyone bowing at his feet. And he unfortunately did not surround himself with the right people who could have gotten us out of this.
No, I agree with you.
Right. You're absolutely.
I agree with you. I mean, I worked in a White House. I mean, kind of worked in a White House. I mean, I was in the Air Force at the time, but I was around Nixon's administration. And, there were competent people there. So much so at the end, because I was there at the end. I was with him the day we flew him to Loma Linda, California. We flew him back when they came to him, the senators, about a week earlier and said, we can't cover you anymore. That's when Republican senators had a backbone. They don't have that anymore. They're still covering for him. Anyway, enough of that.
That's another show.
This is Richard Skipper. This is Mainstreet. I'm Gary Allen. I'm your host. We're here every Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. Please watch all the other shows that are on this channel. They're magnificent. My buddy Mark Riccondondo has a show on Sundays from 6 to 7. Catch it. Richie Burns has a show on. There's other shows on this channel. It's absolutely fantastic. And I just, if you want to join us on Twitch and make a comment or two, go to twitch.tv/drinks, jokes, and capital N storytelling. You can make a comment and tell us what you think. Tell your friends about it. I try to put together a very good show for you every week.
And a
Richard,
little politics on the side.
Yeah, a little politics on the side. You got to put it in there. You have been involved in the New York show business area for a long time in the community. There isn't anybody you probably don't know. When did this all start to come together for you? At what age? I mean, when did you decide, this is where I want to go? I don't want to be a fireman or a policeman or a dentist or a doctor or anything. When were you very young? And by the way, folks, this is a Larry King moment. He sent me a resume that has just who he's interviewed, which is marvelous. So I'm doing the Larry King thing. Thank God I trained with Larry King, so I can do this here. You're on from Cleveland, yes.
I come from the Johnny Carson school of interviewing. Don't discuss anything until you're in front of a camera. And we have not discussed anything. No, I grew up on a tobacco farm in South Carolina. I am a product of 1960s and 70s television. I grew up watching the variety shows. And what was really wonderful about that era, which I truly miss, you've got 1,000 TV stations. And now, I heard the other day that there are 25 new streaming stations that are going to be opening up over the next 2 months. And with all of that at our disposal, there was nothing like destination television. And what I mean by that, there was a time and a phrase when the family would come together, sit in front of the TV, and watch TV together. And these networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, mostly CBS and NBC. ABC was like the little invalid that it took a while to get there.
Little stepchild.
The stepchild, but they were always trying to get the largest demographic that they could get. And so therefore, you would see entertainers, not only from my generation, from my parents and my grandparents' generation. So I grew up, I was born in 1961, which was only about 35 to 40 years after the end of vaudeville. And what happened when vaudeville died? All of those entertainers went to television. So I grew up watching that kind of entertainer. And that was the world that I wanted to be a part of. That was the world that I gravitated towards. I started performing in local theater when I was 13 years old. And also when I was 13, I was reading a book called The Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol. And in the book, Claude M. Bristol says, set your mind on a goal like a homing pigeon and go after it with dogged determination. I swear I'm telling you a true story. On August 5th, 1974, I'm reading this book. And I closed the book and I went in and I said to my parents, 5 years from today, I'm going to New York. And you can imagine the look on my parents' faces. They laughed. They said, sure, you're going to go to New York. And every year on August 5th, leading up to 1979, on August 5th, 1975, I would say 4 years to go, 3 years to go, 2 years. And on August 5th, 1979, I arrived in New York. I had never been anywhere. I had never flown anywhere. I had never been outside the parameters of my hometown, except to go to North Carolina. I had $500 in my pocket, my Bible, because I was a good little Methodist boy at that time. And I came to New York with big dreams. I got my first acting job 3 weeks after arriving in New York. Wow. I got my first survival job the day after I arrived in New York. My very first audition in New York was for the film Stardust Memories with Woody Allen. I didn't get it. But I met someone who became a dear, dear friend at that first audition, and we remained friends until she died. But I just had the dream and the determination to go after it.
That had to be with $500 in your pocket, even back in 79, you said. That still had to be a culture shock and a half. I mean, I thought about going to New York. Instead, I made a left and I went to LA. because I grew up in South Florida, and I thought, growing up as a kid, I saw enough snow. I'm a little nervous. And now Mark Riccondano, who's one of my good friends who has a show on this network, he left Ohio and went to New York, but he was with the American Academy. With a couple of days in, and you had your first audition and everything else. Some people wait a lifetime to even just get in front of somebody. How in the name of God did you get that?
Well, you bring up there are 2 points that I'd like to acknowledge that you just brought up. Number one, when I arrived in 1979, the New York that I imagined was the New York from That Girl that you saw on Friday nights on ABC, which was this glamorous, gorgeous version of New York. Breakfast at Tiffany's, Sunday in New York, those movies that I had seen on television. When I arrived in 1979, what I actually found myself in the middle of was Midnight Cowboy, Taxi Driver, Indian Wants the, Bronx. It was a different vibe in New York than what it is now. And it was gritty. And when you're an 18-year-old kid on your own, I'm not ashamed to say that most nights I cried myself to sleep. But I've always had this sense of going after what I want. I know that most people, you talk about the vaccine earlier, most people are, I'll wait and see what happens. I'll wait and see what happens. None of us are promised tomorrow. None of us are promised the next hour. And I don't think of that in terms of morbidity, but more as that if I don't do it now, when will I do it? And I also believe that the biggest, everything in life boils down to one word. And that one word is yes. Yes, I will watch your show. Yes, I will tune in every Friday. Yes, I will subscribe to your YouTube channel.
Yes, you do.
I am there for you. All of those things that we as individuals, whether you're in show business or whether or not, with whatever business you're in.
Yeah.
My husband is a landscape architect, and on almost any given night of the week, he is at a planning board meeting. And there's always someone that always wants to stand up and say, no, you can't do that. No, but that's how they go through life.
Yeah.
Excuse me for going there, but the last 4 years have been built on no. No, we're not going to do that. No, we're not going to go there. You've got this kook from, is it Wisconsin? That wants to...
Johnson from Wisconsin.
Yes, Johnson from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Everything about that man is no.
Well, everything about Republicans is no.
Exactly. And just get out there and go after your dreams. Do what you want to.
Yeah, that's why he is my friend. Richard Skipper, he's on Mainstreet with me here at 4 p.m. on Fridays. Gary Allen with you, your humble host, which is a word that nobody would ever associate with me from when I met Richard, that I was humble. But Richard will tell you that in the 10 years we've known each other, we both have come a long, long way. But to have a friend like this is worth everything. We have a lot of mutual friends in the business as well. Jeffrey Marks, who was already on this program, and he's going to try to help me get Melissa Manchester on here too. We're going to try. I don't know how that's going to work out. But you had to be, I'm going to acquaint this to when I went to Vietnam, which was in 1970, almost 1971, after I got in the Air Force.
How is that, though?
I was a helicopter pilot. I was a kid. I was a punk kid. Real smart ass, as if that's changed. You had to be scared out of your brain to even move, because back in those days, folks, you don't realize the Broadway that you see now, at one time on both sides, were nothing but live sex shows, peep shows. I remember New York back then because I would travel with my Uncle Tubby, who you knew of, Tubby Boots, who was an entertainer in Miami Beach. It was a scary place. I knew some of the girls who performed in the live sex shows because they knew Tubby. Tubby knew the darker side of, seedier side of New York at times. And it was a scary, scary place. I remember going in to Catch a Rising Star and auditioning for open mic night. Chris DePetta and I will talk about that next week. He's my guest. But it had to be scary for an 18-year-old kid. I know what it was like for me when I got to Vietnam. My shorts were the color of white. But after the first mission, they weren't anymore. I can tell you that right now. I mean, you got an 18-year-old kid. Yes, I knew how to fly before I got in the military, but I never had anybody shooting at me. But New York was like the wild, wild west at one time, because I had a gentleman who was like a older father to me, who had a show on, which was based out of New York. What, over a period of time, how did it toughen you up? You had to get tough or get run over.
Well, I'll tell you something. Not to get too deep into family dynamics, but I grew up in a household where my parents were not overly ambitious. I had big dreams. I had dreams that were bigger than me. And so to hear my parents say to me, "You don't know anyone in New York. You'll never survive in New York. What makes you think you can live in New York?" No matter how bad things got in New York, I was not going to allow them to see me fail. And that's what propelled me to go forward. And I kept pushing through every obstacle. And trust me when I tell you this. I talk about the word yes. There were more no's than yes. I went through a whole period when I was ripped off by roommates. I got my first off-Broadway show, which was HMS Pinafore at the Cherry Lane Playhouse with Loom, Light Opera of Manhattan. We were opening the next day. We were rehearsing till like 2 o'clock in the morning. I lived on the very last stop on the number 7 line, Flushing, Queens. I get home. I had 2 roommates, and they were like the male equivalent of George and Martha from Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. They were constantly fighting. They were throwing things. I would come in. I would go into my room. I would shut the door and pray that the door would not be knocked down before the night was over. And I came home at 2 o'clock in the morning, went to put my key in the door, and the key didn't fit. And I'm banging at the door. They come to the door. They say, "Who's there?" And I go, "It's Richard Skipper." And they go, "We don't know any Richard Skipper." They just decided on a whim. It wasn't that I wasn't paying rent, because I was. They just decided on a whim that they wanted me out of the apartment. So I called a friend. I slept on his sofa for a few nights. And then it turns out that the costumer, the guy who was in charge of the wardrobe department in HMS Pinafore, was looking for a roommate. So $500 a month in cash. And after 6 months, I come home one day and there's an eviction notice on the door that we have 72 hours to get out. And I called. When I questioned him, he had not been paying the rent for months, unbeknownst to me. I called my father and I said, "I need you to help me out. I'm really stuck." And my father said, and some people are going to say this is cruel, but it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. My father said, "I'll send you a one-way ticket to come home, but I'm not sending you any money to stay in New York." And I said, "Well, then forget it. I'll figure out what I'm going to do." I ended up finding what they used to call SRO hotels. I had a bathroom down the hall. There were drug addicts in the building. There were derelicts. I used to step over the homeless people that were sleeping in the hallways to get to my apartment. Every time I went to take a shower, there was no lock on the door. I would go in. I learned to take very quick showers, if you can imagine. I mean, I was scared to death that I was going to be killed or that I was going to be beaten over the head or something. But what that also ended up doing is I discovered the world of the piano bar. And I'm not a drinker. I didn't go to bars. But once I discovered the world of the piano bars, I was in a different piano bar every night. I would get up and sing. Men, women. I was a cute little kid in New York. They were buying drinks for me. Some of these piano bars had free buffets if you got up to perform. So I would get a free meal by going in. I would do whatever it took. And I did a lot of temp jobs. I did singing telegrams. I was a telephone operator for an answering service when they had those in those days. I did everything I could to be able to survive in the city.
Did you ever run across any of these people that kind of stabbed you in the back? Did you ever run into them again?
Well, this is the funny thing about living in New York, especially in this business. It's a fishbowl, and it's a small town, and you constantly run into the same people over and over and over again. The secret: don't hold a grudge. Let it go. Yeah. You never know what they're going through. I don't excuse it, but I say, okay, that's them. This is me. Move on. And I know I sound like Pollyanna, but this is, I just turned 60. This is through a lifetime.
Oh, you're such an old man. I'm 8 years older than you.
Oh, you're a baby.
Oh, thank you. So he's Richard Skipper. I'm Gary Allen. This is Main Street. We're on at 4 p.m. on Fridays. We're having a great discussion talking about show business, Richard's life in New York. Yeah, I mean, a positive attitude is always what will get you through. I never had any roommates. Well, one tried to rip me off once when I was at the University of Miami, but that was short-lived because somebody told him, don't play with Gary, because Gary will do you in pretty good. But it's a tough business. People don't realize, even though I went to LA, it's not any easier out there than it is anywhere else. And when people ask me, Gary, do you have any advice? Because I started out acting and stuff in LA. I always say, don't go to New York or LA to get your stuff together. Have most of it together before you get there. And just because grandpa knows somebody in LA or New York, that doesn't mean anything. It means nothing. Friday afternoon. Unless your person is a major producer that can get you somewhere, but you better hope that they're hot at the moment, because if they're not going anywhere.
Well, my advice is to, and I have this mantra that I say every morning when I get up: put your blinders on, stay in your lane, do the best job that you can possibly do, and don't think about what your neighbors are doing, or what the person across the street. Judy Garland once said that she found that every time she was looking through a keyhole, somebody was looking back at her. Yes. And you have to really focus on what those things are that are important to you, what you want, what you need. And I think that we live in a culture where, with gossip rags and everything, reality-based television shows, everybody is interested in everybody else's business.
Yep.
Quite frankly, I wish them well. I don't care if the Kardashians are getting another divorce, or what color lipstick they're going to put on when they get up in the morning, or anything.
Unless they're kissing me, and then I might care.
Unless they're kissing you. But there are people who live, eat, and breathe. Yeah. Someone else's existence,
because their lives are so shallow and so empty. That's why Amazon delivers packages to certain people who buy and buy and buy, because they're trying to fill a void that they have within their own life. And I learned a long time ago, I don't care about gossip. What Richard Skipper and his wife, husband, does behind closed doors is your business. It's none of my business. What this one does, what that one does, I don't care.
Unless, of course, I do it with your wife. And then you should care.
If you do, she's been dead for 6 years. So go and have fun. Neck across crowd, whatever they call it. I don't know. But the bottom line is, I learned in LA. And I knew one person in LA when I got there, just one person. And over a period of time, thanks to Robin Williams, God bless him.
God bless him.
He helped me. And Bud Friedman helped me. And I learned lessons, by the way, that set me on the right track, because you said something that's very important. Stay in your lane. If you look, I get jealous of actors. I have a good friend of mine, Ray Abruzzo, who you know from The Sopranos.
Oh, absolutely.
I wish I had his chops. I wish that Dick Wolf, which is a joke on this channel because of one of our hosts, would put me on Chicago PD or Chicago Fire. I love those shows, but I stay in my lane, because when I was in college, I interned for and worked for Larry King.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to be a talk show host. Now, I'm not maybe the best talk show host that God's ever put on earth, but I try and I work hard at it, and I enjoy what I do, talking to people like you. When you and I were performing in Las Vegas,
mm-hmm.
on the same stage,
mm-hmm.
or when we were performing in Orlando, when we were on the same stage,
mm-hmm.
you could always tell the kids that were just kind of going through the motion. They didn't know the character. I was doing Jay Leno, and you were doing Carol Channing at the
Right.
time, and you were magnificent at it. But I knew Jay Leno from the 9 years old. So everything people would throw something at me, a question. We had other performers who didn't know anything about the character they were doing, just that they looked like that person. And that used to drive me crazy. As an actor, you learn to do your homework.
I'm doing an interview tomorrow, and I am studying this book, and today I overheard an interview that somebody was interviewing him and asking him questions that are outlined right in the book. You know, like, do you have a website? He says on the very first page of the book. So, you know, if someone's asking, do you have a website, that they haven't gone beyond page one. But you're absolutely right. A lot of people don't do their homework.
Yeah.
And speaking of, you know, staying in your lane, think about this for just a moment. Social media is designed in such a way that you or I could go on a complete stranger's page and throw a monkey wrench into a thread that they've written. If, you know, you and I, you know, we're on the same page politically, but there are many that are not. And if they think differently or anything, unless they are saying that they want to blow up the Capitol or something, that's something when you should speak up and speak out. But for the most part, stay off of their page. If something bothers you, there's a wonderful device called the snooze button. Hit it. Snooze them for 30 days. And in 30 days, you're not even going to remember why you snoozed them.
Yeah.
You know, this idea, we live in this cancel culture now, where if someone disagrees with you, they can cancel you. And I think last night, Turner Classic Movies, they're doing a great series now on films that we need to go and revisit. And the first film in the series was Gone with the Wind. Now, this is one of my favorite movies. Really? I grew up in the South, but it's the cinematography, it's the acting. Hattie McDaniel, she's playing a stereotype, but she has depths to that character that are so brilliant.
And you know what? I just want to add this in there. Do you know that when she won the Academy Award, they kept her off and away from the rest of the actors, because back then racism ran rapid in the business. They had to keep her off. And when she came on, she was so gracious with her acceptance speech. And Hattie was always appreciated for her talent, but she never got in the mainstream media 100% of the adulation that she should have gotten from the brilliant.
The NAACP also went after her because they really attacked her for the roles that she was doing. And her response was always, I would rather play a maid than be a maid. And then you've got someone like Lena Horne, who said, I will never play a maid, and God bless her. But she would be cast in films, and they would show them in the South, and they were snippets that they could snip out without the audience feeling that they lost any story. But I read something very interesting yesterday, that Clark Gable, on the set of Gone with the Wind, it was segregated at first. That there were restrooms for the blacks and there were restrooms for the whites. And Clark Gable said, if you don't take those signs down, you will lose me as Rhett Butler. And he stood up for everybody on the set.
Sort of like what Frank and Dean did for Sammy in Las Vegas and other black performers who where racism really ran rapid, as if black people are inferior to us. They're far from that. I mean, come on. I mean, people are people, whatever your brain is doing. Look, I was raised by Polish people, so I know I'm stupid. You know what I mean? I was brought up that way, but no, I'm only kidding. But the bottom line is people are people. You got to take them for the way they are.
I don't get it. It's one thing that I absolutely don't understand, someone disliking someone based on pigmentation.
Unless that individual has done something to you, but you still don't dislike them because they're of this. You dislike them because of who they are.
Because one person did something. You know, most of the worst people that I've met are white people who feel that they are superior to other people.
Yes. And that's horrible. One of the questions that always love to ask actors about is when certain actors constantly work all the time, and I'm sure that it happens in the cabarets in New York, the talented people, it's sort of like watching American Idol, and there's always those 3 or 4 in every episode at the beginning when they travel around different cities that they have no business auditioning and everything else like that. Talk to the people about how hard, with what you went through, but how hard it is, even if you have talent, to even get recognized. New York, Chicago, LA, Paris, London, whatever, how difficult it is to make an imprint or make a footprint into this business at all.
It's very difficult, and you have to know what your imprint is going to be or what you want it to be. I'm not a household name, but I'm known in New York. You mentioned earlier that there are very few people that I don't know. And if I don't know them, I know how to get in touch with them. And that's through a lifetime of connections. I did a show in 1990 called Men of Manhattan. And the playwright, John Glines, wrote a character for me. But by the time, and you know this, it takes a long time to get a show on the boards. By the time they got to the point where it was going to be an actual production, to cut on cost, they wanted, it was 7 vignettes about life in Manhattan. And they wanted the actors to be able to play various roles. And because this one particular role that was written for me, I made such an impact. The guy who was going to be directing did not feel that I could play another character and the audience would believe that I was a completely different character.
Oh.
But God bless the playwright, said, I want Richard in this show. I auditioned for that show 7 times. And I did the show. The show opened. It was an ensemble piece, but I walked away with a lot of the reviews. I was on the cover of several magazines, and there was a lot of resentment from the director and other cast members because this was happening to me. Yes. It wasn't something that I was seeking. It wasn't something that I was thrilled to be in the theater piece. But, a few months later, they were doing another production, and over and over and over again, they knocked me out of the running for that show because the director said I would run away and it would become a Richard Skipper story. Wow. And, there are people out there who I've had things attributed to me that I've never said or that I've never done. Mm-hmm. Carol Channing, who, as you know, was a dear, dear friend of mine. Yes. I'll share something with you right here.
Sure.
Yours.
He's now traveling. It's a traveling show.
It's here.
There it is. Yes.
Carol and I, a lot younger there. That was actually 10 years ago when I was 50. Not too bad, I don't think.
No, not bad at all.
But anyway, Carol once said to me that when she was doing Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and for those of you who may be too young to remember this, and I know you are too, Gary, she was the toast of Broadway. Yeah. And she ended up on the cover of Time magazine and Life magazine, which was a pretty heady thing at that time. She was only the second actress to have that distinction, the first being Tallulah Bankhead. But she was the toast of Broadway. Every review, everybody was raving about her. Dorothy Kilgallen came to see the show, and Dorothy Kilgallen said, I don't get it. They should call the show Gentlemen Prefer Amazons. She's clunky. She can't act. She can't sing. She can't dance. She's a triple threat to the audiences that come to see the show.
Wow.
And Carol said that all of a sudden, forget everything else that she had achieved. She's beginning to think, what if those people in the audience see what she saw? What if they start to believe this? And it started to affect her performance. Wow. And one night, Anita Luce, who wrote Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, she comes to see the show. She came backstage and she said, what's going on? And she said, it's a different performance. What's going on? And Carol told her what she was going through. And Anita Luce said to her, for every person who likes you, there are an equal number who don't. Get used to it. Mm-hmm. And you can post something on Facebook and have 100 people say, oh my God, you're absolutely right. I'm there for you. I believe in this. One person has a negative comment. and forget everything else. It's like, I'm sure you're probably that person on stage who looks at the empty seat instead of all the other seats that are filled.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, it's human nature. It's who we are.
Yeah. As if Dorothy Kilgallen had a great career. I don't know anything other than she was a game show panelist her whole life that I know of.
But she was a columnist, and she was a very powerful columnist.
Yeah, I know, but people like that, maybe jealousy did it. That's Richard Skipper. I'm Gary Allen. You're listening to Main Street or watching Main Street. Hope you're enjoying the show. We're on 4:00 on Fridays, every Friday afternoon. Next week, Chris DePetta, the owner of the Punchline and famous for helping a lot of comedians get where they are, is going to join us. Yeah, Dorothy Kilgallen, to me, the only thing I know about her was that she was always a panelist, and I always found her kind of crusty. I didn't know a great deal about her, but Carol Channing was a consummate professional. Mm-hmm. But you know what? That's what happens. There are people that are jealous. I mean, the difference between a New York actor and an LA actor may be miles apart, like 2,500 miles apart, but stabbing somebody in the back in LA is as common as it gets. They even stab their own relatives sometimes because there's not enough jobs to be had, even when times are good. But by the way, you said something.
The other thing, the flip side of that, in defense of the other side, is that it's not always about the talent. It's sometimes who you know, being at the right place at the right time. I mean, quite frankly, if someone's investing a lot of money as a producer, they want to work with people that they know. They want to work with people that they trust. And sometimes coming through the ranks, you may not have the gravitas. I heard someone say the other day that a lot of casting directors now are casting based on the number of followers you have. That has nothing to do with the talent. They want to know that there are going to be eyeballs and tuning into their product.
I watched the what was it? Was it the Golden Globes that were on about a week ago, last Sunday? Other than some people in the audience, I didn't know who half the people that were winning the awards were.
Now, can I tell you, to all of your listeners out there, this is something you need to know about the Golden Globes. It's the Foreign Press Association.
Yeah.
And these awards are bought. These people that are winning these awards, I mean, there are some of the greatest artists were not recognized or anything. Thank God, Jane Fonda is going to get an award as a recognition for a lifetime of work. But a lot of the people that are getting those awards, and that's not to take away from their talent, but it's a matter of it is the wooing that goes on. They are whining, not right now because of the pandemic, but they're whining, they're dining, they're gift packages, they're all these things. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that has nothing to do with the talent on the screen. I remember when I was a kid and Pia Zadora won the Golden Globe Award for a film called Butterfly. And the film had not even come out when she got that award.
Wasn't she married, or isn't she married to an extremely wealthy man?
She was. He passed away.
Yeah.
And she's a wonderful person. I interviewed Pia Zadora several years ago, and she's the butt of a lot of jokes, but she is a very smart woman, believe it or not. And I had a great time with her. And I will say this, my mom was coming to New York, and it was my mom's first visit to New York. And because I had interviewed Pia Zadora, we were going to see her. And I told Pia Zadora that my mom was coming to New York and I was bringing her to see the show. So at the end of Pia Zadora's show, she's on stage and she says, I want to introduce you all to this wonderful gentleman that I just met, Richard Skipper, but I'm more excited about meeting his mom because she just came to New York.
Oh, isn't that
nice? After the show, Pia Zadora, forget everybody else that was there to see her. She spent all that time talking to my mom.
That's a heart. There's a heart there. There's a human being there. And, a lot of people think that a lot of people in the business think that we all are like the Kardashians, and we are not. It's like, I know a lot of soap opera people, particularly on The Young and the Restless. I used to know. I don't know the cast now at all, really. I mean, I know some members that are still there, but we're like most actors are like show business, like soap opera people. They're there, they do their job, and they go home. You never hear about them in the limelight. You never hear about this because they're blue collar working actors.
It's a
You
job.
know, it is. It's even if you love it, it's still a job. You know, I was thinking about this as I was driving to get my shots today. I was thinking about it. You know, no matter how much you love your job, there's a time for a timeout. Oh, I got to get away for a while. Maybe a week, and maybe 10 days, it may be whatever, but you got to let the brain relax. And people don't seem to understand that. And also too, there are a lot of actors, folks, who go to LA or New York and they make a ton of money. And then they say, you know what? Enough of this BS.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going home back to wherever I came from. I'm going to open up a little store. I've made some investments, even though it's tough today, that can still be done. Which reminds me, you and I have been around long enough in this business, and we've dealt with the lookalikes, and we've dealt with this people and that people. The minute I hear any BS coming at me, long stories, baggage that I really don't care about, I walk away. I don't walk away literally, but my brain goes, all right, I'm going to stand here and be polite and smile, but you're full of crap, and I'm just going to, be polite, and then I'm going to walk away. I mean, do you do the same thing with people?
Well, the bottom line is that we're all human, and we all have good days and we all have bad days. And sometimes, if you never know, I have a friend, I always say this on my own show, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. True. You never know what somebody else is going through. And if a celebrity is having a bad day, you don't know. Whoopi Goldberg once said that if she's in a restaurant and she's with someone, please don't come to her table. Yes. You don't know. It could be a family issue that they're dealing with. It could be a very private issue. But she says, if I'm sitting by myself in a restaurant, feel free to stop by. Now, everyone's going to stop by the next time they see her in a restaurant. But, feel free to stop by and, and say hello and everything. But the bottom line is that we're all human. And I think that I see somebody say, well, I didn't like that person. She was very nasty to me. Mm-hmm. Well, so what? So what? She was having a bad day.
And how many people take the character that they play, like the news anchor on your local news, and think they're just like that off the air? How many news anchors have you met in New York, and I've met over the years, that when they're off the air, they're horrible human beings?
Not all.
They only care about themselves.
Not all of them. No.
I mean, yeah, there are not, they're not everybody's Tom Snyder. Tom was kind of difficult to deal with, but all actors, because this person plays, like, for instance, one of my dear friends, but I haven't talked to him in years, plays the villain on The Young and the Restless. Okay. He plays Victor Newman. He's nothing like that character in real life. Yes, he's a little stern because he's Austrian, but he's a really likable guy, or John Wayne. I never got to meet him. I know his sons, but how many actors have you met that you were like, whoa, boy, they're nothing like what I expected?
I'm going to tell you something, and I mean this with all sincerity. Yes. I have been very, very fortunate. I've worked with a lot of celebrities. I've interviewed a lot of celebrities. Many of the celebrities that I've had the opportunity to interview, I've had the opportunity to also break bread with. I've gone to restaurants. Melissa Manchester, you mentioned earlier, yes. And we've become friends. The thing is that everybody is trying to etch out. Everybody's trying to figure out who they are and what they are and where they are at any given moment. And we all deal with the same hopes, the same fears, the same dreams, the same desires. For the most part, there'll be renegades, as we go through life. Yeah. But every celebrity, you can be on the top of the heap today, and the next day, nobody wants to have anything to do with you. And you mentioned LA, perfect example. I'm not going to mention the name, but very famous celebrity who's got a big birthday coming up, but that's all the clues I'll give. For 90% of her career was a New Yorker. And she made the decision to move to New York a few years ago. And a mutual friend said, why is she making this move now? Because she's no longer on the A list. And she wasn't going to LA because she wanted to be on any A list. She wanted to go to start again and to get away from New York. She wanted to start over with her life. But there's some truth to that statement, that when you go into a restaurant and you're an A-list person, you're going to be given preferential treatment. You're going to be taken to the best tables. You're going to get the best service. But if you're someone who is on the way down, you're treated a lot differently, no matter what you've achieved in the past.
Yeah. Richard Skipper is joining us, and please go on richardskipper.com. We've got about 10 minutes left here. You've interviewed over 1,000 people on Richard Skipper Celebrates. Who have been some of your favorite interviews, and have you had many of your celebrities do the Robert De Niro interview, just one word answer, like we've all had at some point? But who have been your favorite interviews?
Leslie Ann Warren is one of my all-time favorite interviews. This week marked a year since I started doing my virtual interviews. And she was the first person that I reached out to get started with this, and she said yes. I've also had the opportunity to interview her on stage, and when the re-release of Cinderella came out. And so that was a real highlight for me. I'm not going to mention names, but one particular interview, very, very famous person. And they said, well, send us the questions that you want to ask. And, we'll go from there. This was when I was writing my blog. And every single question was yes, no, I don't remember. Gave me nothing to work with. Nothing.
Yeah, I've had those. Or they give you too much. Or they go on and they go on. Who's your get? Who's the one person, past, maybe deceased, because you can't get them now, but who is the one get you'd like to have gotten or still want to get more than anything?
This is an easy one, Barbra Streisand. I want to interview Barbra. So if any of her people are listening and watching, I want to interview her because we know her career, but I want to know about her hopes, her fears, her dream. She's also very political, and that I admire that she has used her fame. There are some people who say, just act and keep your mouth shut. Yeah. But we don't expect that from other people. No. In any other profession.
Would you expect that? Would you expect that from me?
No, I don't expect it from anyone.
No.
But Barbra Streisand is at the top of Barbra Streisand.
So talented, so talented.
Shirley MacLaine. And interestingly enough, they share a birthday. I would love to get both of those. Liza Minnelli is someone I would love to interview.
And that's odd because she lives in New York, right?
No, she moved to Los Angeles.
Because I would figure, have you interviewed her sister, Lorna Luft?
I know Lorna. And I've never interviewed Lorna, but you can understand why. Lorna is incredibly guarded.
I had a crush on her.
Oh, she's gorgeous. I love her.
I always loved
amazing talent.
I loved Liza. I always thought super talented when she performed. And of course, when she was married to Peter Allen, who I love his music to this very day. But I always had a crush on Lorna Luft. But I must admit, because Jeffrey Mark will tell you, my biggest crush my whole life growing up was Suzanne Pleshette.
Wow. I
loved that woman. I mean, and then there was someone who you interviewed. Oh my God, what's her name? She was always on the panel shows. She's been married numerous times. Oh my God. Joyce Buffont.
Joyce Bulifant. I'm going to be interviewing Joyce Bulifant again in a few weeks. We just lined up the interview. Hold on, I'll tell you what the date is.
Okay.
Yes, I'm going to be interviewing her on the 26th. We just set that up.
We only got about a minute or so left to go, and I want to thank you so much for joining us. But finally,
great.
With everything that you've been through in your life and everything that you are anticipating, and as your friend, who is Richard Skipper?
Richard Skipper is someone who cares. Richard Skipper is someone who's interested in other people and what they bring to the table. I don't think it's always about me. I love what makes an artist tick. That's why I call my show Richard Skipper Celebrates. I love to celebrate other people. I love to celebrate each day. I have this heightened sense of how precious our moments are.
Yes.
And I live every life with that. How do you eat an elephant, folks? One bite at a time. Don't think of, oh my God, what's our life going to be like a year from now? What can you do today? And one thing, I know we're running out of time, but I want to say you're not responsible for whether or not the people that you encounter wear a mask or not. You're not responsible for how people think politically, whether they agree with you or not. You're not responsible as to whether or not people like you or not. But what you are responsible for is how you respond to it. And I think that one of the things that's lacking in our world right now is empathy.
Yes.
And I also think the other thing that a lot of people are not operating from a moral compass. At some other time when we've got more time to talk, I'll tell you about my experience on the Conan O'Brien show when it came to that very topic.
Jeffrey Mark told me about his run-in with Conan as well. He is Richard Skipper. He is a dear friend of mine. He is a man who I can call and in the middle of the night, of course, he'll not answer the phone, but he's always there for me when I need to talk to him about whatever in this business. And he's going to be, we're going to be doing some collaborations together, I'm sure, in the future. I want to thank him very much for joining us. I want to thank all of you out there for taking the time to join us here. We're on Fridays at 4 p.m. next week. Chris DePetta, the owner of The Punchline, Billy Gardello's manager as well, and we're going to talk about comedy and everything in the business. I want to thank Richard again, Tom Bannis, who is my executive producer, and I want to thank you, all of you out there. Tell your friends and family members about this show. We surely would like to have you on as far as a guest, coming in, making comments, and doing some great stuff. We are happy to be with you every Friday at 4 here on Main Street.
And if I can say something about you for just a moment,
sure.
Everyone go and if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe. Hit the bell and you'll get a reminder every time these shows go live. When you subscribe, and it doesn't mean a monetary subscription, when you subscribe on YouTube, it just simply means that it builds the number of people who are following your content. And the more followers you get, the more visible those videos become. So subscribe to this page.
Thank you very much, Richard. I appreciate that very much. And again, thank all of you. Until next Friday, Gary Allen asking you, please take care of yourselves and each other.
Thank you.